the logs deployment. Then sufficient compute storage and IP addresses are available. So anyway, we are going to deploy this in the management domain, right? So we should be we'll be having that compute storage, and IP address is very important. Okay, so IP address information you need to collect. Then certificate. Are you going to use a self-signed certificate, or else are you going to use enterprise CA? That is from Microsoft. Okay, so based on that, you need to take a decision. Either you can start with the self-signed certificate deployment. Later on, if you want, you can change it. Okay, that's what many engineers will do. So these are all the prerequisites before we start the logs deployment. And this is the 8-step process to complete that VCF operations logs deployment. So first step is configure the depot. So we need a software, right? So to download the software, we have two options: online depot and offline depot. So we are already familiar with this online offline depot, right? During the VCF 9 deployment, for downloading the binaries for deployment, we used online offline depot, right? I told you for online depot, we need a token generation. Without the token, we cannot use online option now, because earlier we used credentials till 5.x. Okay, even at the end of 5.x, they started the token generation. So for our lab, we are going to use or configure the offline depot. That I'll show you what are all the offline depot options available for saving this VCF operations log binary. So once you configured offline depot, then download that log binaries to the fleet management. Okay. So once that is done, you can start deployment. So deployment here, it will show us add logs, which means add this VCF operations log in the component list. That's what the third step. Then once you started the add logs, then you need to configure the infrastructure and networking for your VCF operations log inside that add logs steps. Then run pre-check, deploy logs, validate deployment, perform post deployment configuration. So this is the complete 8-step process. We are going to see this as a complete demo. I'm going to show the demo for all these 8 options. Okay, so let's start with the first one. First step is configure depot. So when I say configure depot, we have the option to use online as well as offline. So in the offline section, we have 2 options. One is to use the web server. Another option is to use the local path. When I say web server, we already built a web server for our VCF deployment, right? We can use that same web server, but only requirement is it should be HTTPS. If it is HTTP, then that web server we cannot use here. Okay, so what I did in our lab is, I'm not going to use a web server. Instead of that, I'm going to use a local path, that is the local directory of the VCF fleet management appliance. So inside the fleet management appliance, I'm going to use the partition called data. Inside the data, you can create a directory or you can use the existing directory, then upload the metadata file over there. And then you can use that path for downloading the binaries for deployment. Okay. So we are going to configure the depot. So I'll show you how to configure the depot. So we are inside VCF Cloud Operations. Okay. And here you can see in the fleet management, go to the life cycle and go to the settings section. Here you can find VCF Operations Fleet Management 9.0. And this is the IP address of our VCF fleet appliance. So what we are going to do here is I'm going to upload, that is I'm going to use this VCF fleet appliance partition as my offline depot directory. Okay, so let's go through the demo. I'm logging into the VCF fleet management appliance right now. So using the root account, I just logged in. Now I'll tell you which directory or which partition we are going to use for uploading that binaries. Okay. Okay. So yesterday's class, I told you, right? In the next class, I'll show you that where that backup of the fleet management appliance will get stored by default. So this is the directory. See here. This is the data directory, and inside that you can find the LCM backup. Okay. So which has been triggered and saved locally here. Because when in the user interface, like it seems like it is going to forward the backup to that SFTP server, right? But actually, it is not forwarding to SFTP server. Instead, it is saving that files inside this local appliance itself, inside that slash data partition. Okay. And later on, we need to manually move this, or else we need to write a script to move this to the SFTP server. That is how, like we need to maintain the backup in the real-time perspective. But even, like when I do it for the first time, even I got surprised why it is not moved to SFTP server. But later on, like there is a KB article which is given by Broadcom, which states that it won't move to SFTP server. It is going to stay locally. Okay, then we understand. Okay, so this is what happening right now. Not sure in future they will change that process. Maybe in upcoming release we can expect that, but not sure. Okay. So the reason for telling is you should not like search for this fleet management appliance log in the SFTP manager. Okay, so that is SMTP backup. Okay. Okay. Now the reason for logging and showing this data directory is for offline depot, we are going to use this partition to store all our binaries which is required for the deployment. When I say deployment, okay, after the post deployment task, we'll be performing the deployments like VCF identity broker. And if we are not deployed VCF automation, then we are going to deploy that automation. Then VCF network operations, right? So all those appliances we are going to deploy. So all those appliances binaries will be stored here if you are using the offline depot. Offline depot, we have two options. One is to use web server. Then another one is to use this fleet management appliance data partition. Okay. As of now, it is not stored with any of that binaries which is required for installation.